Number 15. 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. A group of men in fascist uniforms greet a room full of blindfolded teenagers. Every smile looks forced, every moment uncomfortable. Pasolini does this on purpose. He wants you to feel trapped before anything even happens. He adapted de Sade's notorious novel, setting it during the last days of Mussolini's puppet regime. 4 powerful men take a group of young captives and subject them to ritual humiliation, punishment, and worse. The film pulls no punches. Some early viewers sit in stunned silence after the credits, while others head for the exit, visibly shaken. Italy bans the film shortly after release. Police intervene in UK screenings, and the movie is banned or suppressed in countries from Italy to Australia and the UK. Even in the US, it sparks outrage and divides critics. Some defend it as art, others call it depraved. Pasolini dies before seeing the full backlash. The controversy keeps raging, but the next movie will make excess look like a party. 14. Caligula, 1979. Actors in togas wait under hot lights, laughing between takes while Malcolm McDowell cracks jokes. No one expects what's coming next. Producer Bob Guccione, the Penthouse boss bankrolling the film, decides this Roman epic needs real explicit sex scenes, shot on the same elaborate sets, often after the director leaves for the day. Caligula starts out as a big-budget, serious movie with respected actors, a script by Gore Vidal, and ambitions for awards. Then Guccione quietly films graphic orgies with models, planning to splice them into the final cut. Months later, even the main cast is shocked at what the movie has become. Customs and officials in places like Italy and the US seize prints and treat the film as borderline obscene. In Boston, censors confiscate reels. The director sued to get his name off the project. Roger Ebert walks out after 2 hours and gives it 0 stars. Despite all the controversy, theaters fill up. Caligula's scandal is its best advertisement, and the next film throws out shame completely, and somehow wins anyway. 13. Pink Flamingos, 1972. Late-night crowds in Baltimore line up, laughing and joking, until John Waters' movie actually starts. The moment Divine appears, everything changes. Pink Flamingos costs about $12,000 to make. Waters rounds up his friends, local drag performers, and whatever Baltimore spaces he can get. The plot? Divine fights to keep her title as filthiest person alive, facing off against rivals through kidnapping, fetish porn, and, in the movie's most infamous scene, eating real dog droppings on camera. The cast only shoots it once. No one wants a second take. Police threaten to shut down screenings in some cities. Critics call it dumb, disgusting, and a waste of film. Audiences either double over with laughter or bolt for the door. Still, word of mouth explodes. Made for about $12,000, it earns many times its budget and becomes a midnight movie cult legend. The next film? The scandal goes mainstream and even ends up in court. 12. Last Tango in Paris, 1972. Outside the theater, protesters chant and wave signs. Inside, everyone's on edge. The rumors swirling around this film are hard to ignore. On screen, Marlon Brando and Maria Schneider dive into a raw, unscripted affair inside a near-empty Paris apartment. Director Bernardo Bertolucci pushes for emotion over refinement, creating scenes that leave early audiences deeply uncomfortable. In France, the movie became a box office hit, but in Italy, police seize all available prints, and courts declare it obscene. Bertolucci faces a serious penalty. He loses certain civic rights like voting for 5 years. Decades later, Maria Schneider's public comments about feeling pressured during the notorious butter scene revived the outrage. A major 2024 Paris retrospective is canceled after backlash from Schneider's revelations. Last Tango in Paris is no longer just a scandal. It's a lesson in what happens when boundaries get blurred on set. Next, a porn movie pulls crowds out of the shadows and into the mainstream. 11. Deep Throat, 1972. A Manhattan theater owner stands back as expensive coats and curious couples line up at his adult cinema. For the first time, people from all walks of life want tickets to a hardcore porn movie. Deep Throat starts as a cheap, silly comedy but quickly explodes into a mainstream sensation. Couples, celebrities, and even some critics show up just to see what the fuss is about. Reports say it earns at least $45 million, maybe far more. But the real numbers are lost in a sea of off-the-books cash. The law cracks down fast. Police raid theaters across America. Harry Reams, the male lead, is arrested and convicted on federal obscenity charges, shocking the industry, though he later wins on appeal. A judge calls the film squalor and hands out huge fines. In the UK, it remains effectively banned for decades, only becoming legally available in full around 2000. Deep Throat turns pornography into mainstream conversation. Next, a horror film will make violence feel terrifyingly close to real life. 10. The Last House on the Left, 1972. It's a warm afternoon in the woods, but by nightfall the mood in the theater is anything but calm. Wes Craven's debut feature isn't here to make anyone comfortable. Craven takes a simple story, two teenage girls kidnapped and brutalized by a gang, and shows every ugly turn without any Hollywood polish. There's no stylized revenge, just messy, relentless violence that hits viewers hard. Some projectionists reportedly snipped scenes themselves just to make it bearable to run the film. The budget is ultra-low, around $90,000, but the impact is off the charts. In the UK, censors refuse to allow screenings. The film gets slapped on the notorious Video Nasties list, vanishing from legal shelves for years. Underground copies become collector's items, changing hands for wild prices. By the 2000s, critics started calling it a disturbing warning about how violence changes everyone it touches. Nothing feels safe in The Last House on the Left, and the next movie twists violence into something almost stylish. 9. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. A gang in bowler hats and white overalls dances through a violent crime spree while Beethoven blares, and British tabloids explode with outrage. This isn't just another movie. Every headline stirs up more controversy. Stanley Kubrick adapts Anthony Burgess's novel and puts viewers straight into Alex's mind. A teen who laughs his way through robbery, assault, and what he calls ultra-violence. Kubrick blends shocking brutality with art house visuals and classical music, so it's impossible to look away. British news quickly blames the film for supposed copycat crimes and reports of schoolyard gangs imitating Alex's look and behavior. The fallout gets personal. Kubrick starts getting death threats. In 1973, he asked Warner Brothers to pull the film from UK cinemas. For almost 3 decades, it's officially unavailable there except through bootlegs. After Kubrick's death, the ban is finally lifted, and a new wave of fans rushes to see what caused so much panic. Now, a film about home invasion pushes audiences to ask how far they'd go under pressure. 8. Straw Dogs, 1971. A quiet American professor and his wife moved to a sleepy Cornish village, hoping for a calm new life. The locals, though, have their own plans, and the audience realizes peace won't last long. Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs uses the rolling English countryside as the backdrop for an intense standoff. Dustin Hoffman plays a man desperate to avoid violence, but the town's aggression keeps closing in. The most talked about scene, a violent, ambiguous assault on Susan George's character, sets off huge debates. Feminist groups protest at theaters. Critics argue non-stop over whether Peckinpah is shining a light on misogyny or just exploiting it. British censors approve an X rating for cinemas, but home video proves tougher. For years, even cut-down versions can't get released. It's not until 2002 that the UK finally allows Straw Dogs out uncut, and the arguments flare up all over again. Next, it's rural Texas, where a chainsaw changes horror forever. 7. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. A van full of teenagers rolls past slaughterhouses and into film history. Everything looks cheap and sunburnt, because it is. Director Tobe Hooper shoots in relentless Texas heat, often using real animal bones and leftover props from nearby fields. The movie's budget is about $140,000, but it delivers a punch that most Hollywood blockbusters can't match. Audiences stumble out convinced they've seen a bloodbath, even though the actual gore is minimal. Some can't make it to the credits, feeling sick from the tension. The film is boldly marketed as based on a true story, which only heightens the anxiety, even though the real-life connection is mostly a loose nod to Ed Gein. British censors refused to allow screenings for decades, and even the word chainsaw became an issue in UK film titles. Worldwide, the movie grosses over $30 million, a monster hit for something so raw. It has been selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Next, faith and fear collide in the story that sent people running for the exits. 6. The Exorcist, 1973. Lines stretch down icy sidewalks as word spreads. Inside, people are fainting, vomiting, and running out before the movie even ends. Some folks even bring priests for backup. The Exorcist landed in theaters at Christmas 1973 with a budget around $12 million and an eventual worldwide gross of over $441 million. Rumors fly about on-set injuries, mysterious deaths, and supposed curses, but the real shocks are right on screen. A possessed child spewing obscenities, vomiting, and violently attacking her mother. The medical scenes are so realistic and intense that they get almost as much attention as the demonic ones. Censors in the US are nervous, but decide the film's value outweighs the shock. In the UK, local councils block screenings, and a home video ban keeps it off shelves until 1999. Outside theaters, Christian groups protest, handing out prayers to moviegoers who dare to watch. The Exorcist turns horror into mainstream prestige, opening the door for one of the strangest indie debuts Hollywood ever saw. 5. Eraserhead, 1977. A pale, anxious man stares at a mutant baby that won't stop crying, and half the audience sits frozen, wondering if they're watching a horror film or a fever dream from an art school basement. David Lynch pulls Eraserhead together with scraps, borrowing money, crashing on set, building industrial landscapes from anything he can find. Production drags on for years, with Lynch sometimes sleeping right where he shoots. When Eraserhead finally screened in 1977, almost nobody showed up. But once midnight movie fans discover it, everything shifts. Word travels in New York and LA. The film runs for months, sometimes years, in cult theaters. The story barely makes sense. A factory worker stuck with his strange girlfriend and their bizarre baby. But the visuals and sound stick with everyone. Made for about $100,000, Eraserhead eventually earns several $1 million and becomes a rite of passage for movie lovers chasing the truly weird. Now, real-life nightmares start bleeding into cinema history. 4. Taxi Driver, 1976. A cab glides through neon-lit Times Square, with Travis Bickle, De Niro at his most intense, watching from behind the wheel, quietly planning to take on a city that barely sees him. Director Martin Scorsese and writer Paul Schrader create one of the most haunting anti-heroes in movie history. Travis, a loner drawn to guns and violence, roams New York's sleaziest streets. The film doesn't flinch from ugly realities: child prostitution, filth, and urban rot. Jodie Foster, just 12 years old during filming, plays Iris, a role so raw it sparks headlines and nervous interviews everywhere. The final shootout is so brutal, the studio has to desaturate the colors to dodge an X rating. After the movie's release, John Hinckley Jr. becomes obsessed with Foster and Taxi Driver, eventually attempting to assassinate President Reagan. Taxi Driver wins the Palme d'Or at Cannes and becomes a cornerstone for debates about screen violence that never really stop. Now, audiences in fishnets and boas turn movie night into a party. 3. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, 1975. People in fishnets and gold shorts line up around the block, and inside they throw toast and rice at the screen without missing a beat. Rocky Horror starts out as a total flop. Nobody cares when it first comes out. But when New York's Waverly Theater tries midnight shows in 1976, everything flips. Fans dress up, shout callbacks, and act out scenes right in the aisles. Audience participation takes over. Fox keeps it in theaters every weekend, and it's widely known as the longest continuously running film release in history. Over 48 years and counting, thanks to those non-stop midnight screenings. For many LGBTQ fans and anyone who ever felt outside the norm, Rocky Horror becomes more than a movie. It's a safe zone, a wild party, and a community ritual. The movie's budget barely clears $1.3 million, but its cultural impact is still priceless. By 2025, new 4K prints keep packing theaters. Now, a gritty New York drama stuns the Oscars and flips expectations for adult film forever. 2. Midnight Cowboy, 1969. A clueless Texas cowboy steps off the bus into grimy Times Square, still believing big dreams can survive in this city. The harsh reality hits fast. Midnight Cowboy goes places few movies dare. Jon Voight's Joe Buck and Dustin Hoffman's Ratso Rizzo hustle their way through poverty, sex work, and heartbreak. The MPAA slaps it with an X rating for its upfront look at male prostitution and same-sex encounters, making it the first major studio release with that label. Instead of killing it, the controversy just makes more people curious. Critics and audiences end up loving it. In 1970, it became the first and still the only X-rated film to win Best Picture, along with Best Director and Best Adapted Screenplay. By 1971, the MPAA quietly dropped it to an R, since X is now linked to porn. What began as a story for outsiders ends up on TV and turns into a strange American classic. Up next, Disco's glitter promises escape, but the real story is much darker. 1. Saturday Night Fever, 1977. Tony Manero's white suit flashes across the disco floor, but once he steps outside, things get rough, fast. Saturday Night Fever rockets John Travolta into superstardom, but it isn't the dance movie many parents expected. The original R-rated version goes deep into Brooklyn's real grit: fighting, drugs, and sexual assault. The dance scenes are legendary, but the story's heart is bruised and desperate. The soundtrack became a phenomenon, selling over 16 million copies. But behind the glitter is a hard, honest look at lost dreams. A year later, Paramount recuts the film for a PG rating, trimming language and some of the darkest scenes to pull in a younger crowd. The result? The box office jumps to $237 million worldwide, making it one of the decade's biggest hits. But anyone who saw the R-rated cut remembers the truth. The 70s didn't hold back, and neither did these films. No subject or style stayed sacred for long. Until next time, stay nostalgic.